I had been driving cross-country for 3 relentless days, cutting through endless stretches of highway that all bled together in my mind. Dusty gas stations, blinking traffic lights, the occasional glow of a diner sign half swallowed by darkness. The road was empty and quiet, like the world had gone to sleep and forgotten to wake me. It was past midnight when exhaustion finally hit me like a wall. My eyelids felt like lead, and the steady hum of the tires became hypnotic. The white lane lines blurred into one continuous streak of light, and I knew if I didn't stop soon, I was going to drift off behind the wheel. Then I saw it. A crooked neon sign glowing faintly ahead on the right side of the highway. "Sleep well, motor in." One of the letters buzzed and flickered erratically, drowning the silence with an electrical hiss. The building behind it sagged under the weight of time, paint peeled off like old skin, and the balcony rails leaned at odd angles as if they were trying to escape the place themselves. It looked awful, and I didn't care, I just needed sleep. The parking lot was almost empty, 3 cars scattered across cracked asphalt, their windshields clouded with dust thick enough to write on. It was strange. This was a motel on a major highway, and yet it felt abandoned inside. The lobby was dim and silent except for the low drone of a soda machine. A pale night clerk sat slouched behind the counter, his face glowing green from the old computer monitor. "Just one night," I mumbled, my voice hoarse. He didn't ask for my name or ID, he just slid an old brass key across the counter and said, "Room 6, around the back." His tone was flat, detached, like he was reading from a script he'd said 1,000 times. Room 6 was tucked around the far corner of the building. The corridor was silent. The light above the door flickered weakly as I unlocked it. The moment I stepped inside, something felt off. The air was thick, heavy, stale, like the room had been sealed for years. Dust floated in the glow of the single lamp. The TV remote didn't work. The phone by the bed was dead. Even the curtains were nailed shut from the inside. A cold knot formed in my chest. I told myself it was just an old, neglected building. But deep down, something primal stirred. A quiet whisper of warning. I went into the bathroom to wash my face. That's when I noticed it. The mirror. It was the only thing in the room that looked new. Polished chrome frame, spotless glass, too clean compared to the cracked tiles and rusted faucets. I leaned closer. That's when I saw it. A tiny hole, no bigger than a pencil tip, in the side of the frame. Frowning, I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight. I angled the beam into the hole, expecting it to bounce off the wall behind. It didn't. The light disappeared, swallowed. There was nothing behind the mirror, just empty darkness. Something shifted inside me then, the unease curdled into fear. I went back into the bedroom, trying to steady my breathing. I dragged my bag closer to the bed and froze. There were grooves in the carpet, deep, worn tracks where the bed's legs sat, like the bed had been pulled forward, again and again. Why? My gut screamed at me. Get out, now. I grabbed my bag and went to the door, but when I turned the knob, it didn't move. I tried again, harder. It rattled, but it wouldn't turn. The door was locked, from the outside. A wave of cold swept through me. I pounded on the door, yelling down the hallway. No answer. I screamed until my throat burned. No footsteps, no voices. The clock on the nightstand ticked past 2:30, then 3:17. The air felt warmer now, close, suffocating, like someone was in the room with me, breathing, just out of sight. Then from the bathroom, a faint, deliberate scratching. I froze. It came again, slow, a long dragging sound, like fingernails along the wall, behind the mirror. My mouth went dry. I crept toward the bathroom. The scratching stopped. Silence. I pressed my ear to the mirror. Nothing. Then, a sound, soft, subtle, like a whisper. I jerked back, heart pounding. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my hand, the screen flashing white, then went black, dead. Even though I had charged it fully an hour ago, every hair on my body stood on end. I ran to the door, screaming, slamming my shoulder against the frame. Once, twice. On the 4th hit, the wood splintered and I tumbled into the hallway. It was empty. Cold fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Every door was shut. I bolted down the corridor, barefoot, clutching my bag. I didn't stop running until I burst into the lobby. The night clerk was still there, hunched at the counter. He blinked when he saw me, sweat-soaked, wild-eyed. I stammered everything. The door, the grooves, the mirror, the scratching. At first, he looked confused. Then he turned to the computer, typed something, and stopped. His face went pale. "Wait," he said. "Which room?" "6, I rasped. His lips moved, barely a whisper. "That room's been out of service for months. No one should have put you there." Later, when the police arrived, they went straight to the bathroom. They pried the mirror from the wall. Behind it was a narrow, lightless crawl space. On the floor, a filthy blanket. Piles of crumpled food wrappers, empty water bottles, and a camcorder. Still on. its lens aimed directly at the tiny hole in the mirror. The footage was worse. Weeks of recordings, dozens of different guests, sleeping, showering, changing, all of them unknowingly watched from the darkness behind the mirror. But the last file was different. It was from that same night. It showed me standing in the bathroom, phone flashlight raised, peering into the hole, and in the grainy darkness behind me, something moved. They never found anyone in the crawl space. It was empty when they searched it. Whoever had been living there had slipped away during the chaos, vanished. The police promised to follow up. They never did. Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I feel it again, that same weight in the air, like someone is standing just out of sight, in the walls, watching. I used to drive for a rideshare app to make some extra money. Most nights were uneventful, just drunk rides, airport trips, nothing unusual. But one night, I picked up a passenger that still makes my skin crawl. It was around 2 in the morning when I got a request from a house about 15 minutes outside of town. When I pulled up, the entire street was dark, not a single light on. Then, out of the shadows, a man stepped forward and got into the back seat, without saying a word. He was tall, dressed in all black, hood pulled low over his face. I asked if he was my passenger. He didn't speak, just nodded. Then he gave me an address about 30 minutes away. At first the ride was silent. Then he started asking strange questions, things like, "Do you live alone? What time do you usually get off work?" His voice was flat, empty, no emotion. I tried to change the subject, but he just kept staring out the window. About 10 minutes in, my app hack glitched. The ride disappeared completely. I asked him to re-enter the destination. That's when he leaned forward and whispered, "Don't worry, I'll tell you where to go." My stomach dropped. Something in his tone made my chest tighten with panic. I pulled into a well-lit gas station, pretending I needed fuel. As soon as I parked, I told him I needed to reset my GPS and asked if he could step out for just a second. He didn't move. He just sat there, in complete silence. Finally, I opened my own door, got out, and walked quickly into the station. Cameras above me, a clerk behind the counter. When I turned around, the man was gone. The car door was still open, but he had vanished without a sound. Later that night, I checked my app. There was no record of the ride, no request from that address, nothing. It was like he had never been in my car at all. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and for most of my childhood, my golden retriever Max was my best friend. He wasn't just a dog, he was family. Every single night, without fail, he slept at the foot of my bed. If I woke up from a nightmare, Max would be there, tail thumping against the floor, reassuring me that everything was fine. But one night in January, something happened. Something that made me look at Max differently. Something I've never been able to explain. It was around 3 a.m. when I woke up to Max growling. And not the playful little grumble he made when he wanted attention. No, this was deep, guttural. The kind of growl that says I'm ready to tear something apart. My room was dark. At first I thought maybe he heard raccoons outside my window. But then, I noticed where he was looking. Not at the window, not at the door. He was staring at the corner of my room, a pitch-black corner that should have been empty. I whispered his name, trying to calm him down, but his growl only grew louder. Then he did something I'll never forget. His whole body went rigid. His fur stood straight up. And then, slowly, his tail tucked between his legs and he backed away. Like whatever he saw was stronger than him. That was the first time I ever saw Max afraid. My heart was pounding as I stared into that corner. And that's when I heard it. A faint sound, like nails dragging across the hardwood floor. But the sound wasn't coming from the corner. It was coming from under my bed. My throat went dry. Max was whimpering now, his eyes darting between me and the bed, like he was begging me not to look. But against every ounce of instinct, I leaned over and pulled up the blanket hanging down. And I swear to you, I saw something. 2 pale hands clutching the wooden slats beneath my mattress. Long, bony fingers curling tight around the wood. I screamed and jumped back. Max exploded into barks, going wild. My parents came running, flipping on the lights. But by the time they got there, there was nothing. No hands, no scratches, no sign of anyone under my bed. They told me it was a nightmare, that Max probably startled me awake. But here's the thing. For the next week, Max refused to sleep in my room. A dog that never left my side, now wouldn't even step through my doorway. He'd sit outside in the hall, just staring at me, just staring at me. And then, 2 nights later, I woke up again, 3 a.m. The room was silent, too silent. Half asleep, I reached down to pet Max like I always did. I felt his fur, his warmth, his breathing. Relieved, I smiled until I opened my eyes, and Max was still in the hallway, still staring at me.